Hey guys, how's it going? Ghosty Rich here today, and today we're going to be working on this 85 square body. Chevy, GMC, you call it what it is. It's kind of a mixed match of all said above. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing some axle seals. We're going to take a look at our brakes, see if those need to be changed here, front and back, but we do know that the seals are leaking on the axle. So let's go ahead and throw a jack under the pumpkin, lift the back end, and slap in some axle stands. One thing I will tell you is, because this is a manual, and even with an auto, because a lot of the times, especially if you don't have four-wheel drive engaged, the rear will be the part that's actually keeping it from rolling. So in that case, make sure you chuck your front tires. If you're looking how to lift it, basically just lift the center of the pumpkin when doing the rear, and then after you've lifted the center of the pumpkin, we're going to go ahead and just lower it onto the jack stands, and we'll get the jack out of the way. After you've done so, again, just give those, it should have possibly rolled back a bit when you lifted it. You just want to make sure those 2x4s or wheel chucks that you've slipped in are very sturdy before hopping under the vehicle. From this point, I'm going to get the jack out of here, and then we're going to go ahead and pop the diff cover off. Well, we can already see why it's leaking. As you can see, this bolt head right here was probably over torqued, snapped off, or maybe just hit something. Who knows? When you get a truck at this age, rust is going to take out certain things. So we're probably going to have to be messing around with this and try and easy it out, because, or easy out, it's not that it's easy, it's just you have to get it out. And right here, you can already see a little puddle of fluid right there, which means that is probably why we have so much leakage right here. So from this point, we need to drain it, and then after we drain it, we can go ahead and inspect the diff. We want to also see, of course, our ratio on the rear, just in case it needs to be updated later. If you've ever drained a newer axle, usually what will end up happening is you'll have a drain at the bottom and a fill up here on the top of your diff cover. In this case, if you look right here, your fill is right here, and the drain is simply undoing all the bolts and then slowly separating the gasket until it pours into a bucket. That's what we're going to have to do here. So one thing I always say before you drain your diff, go ahead and pull out your fill, because if you can't pull the fill out and it's stripped or stuck until you deal with being able to fill it back up, do not drain it. In this case, our fill was a 22. It came out nice and buttery smooth. Now I'm going to take an impact and quickly just pull out every one of these bolts all the way around. Have your fluid pot ready, but I can almost guarantee you it's not going to just drain out when you pull these bolts out unless your gasket was that far gone. So what you're going to need, which I'll show you afterwards, is a wedge tool. So that way you can be able to wedge in it. But you need to be careful. See how the last person who removed this probably used something a little bit too big and they just hammered it in and messed up the lip? You try to avoid that, because the more sealing surface you have, the better chance you have of it not leaking. So this is a gasket removing tool, but I usually like to use it like this. You just take this, and what you can do is tap it with a rubber mallet and separate the plate. I try to separate the bottom first, so that way it pours all the fluid out, and then I do the top last, because once all the fluid's kind of drained out and dripping, it's fine. But if you do the top first and it comes down and then you get to the bottom, it'll just start peeing out the sides, and then you got to try and control the stream. Try to keep your stream narrow. That's the best way to put it. Again, got in there and separated it with this. Then as it was in, slowly worked it over with the bar here, and now we can let this fill right up. Again, if this ends up not being enough space for this amount of fluid, then I can simply pull it out and it'll slow down the stream, and we'll switch to another pot. Good time to take a look and of course check our teeth inside and out, make sure that everything's good. If you see any chunks down here of metal, just call the tow truck. You're probably over your head. So, but a little bit of normal shavings like so, sure, it's gonna happen. It's just your average wear and tear. Shavings, all right. Chunks, not all right. Just inspect your teeth. If you notice any like pits or anything like that, That's not good. Also inspect the fluid. I mean, as you can see, this fluid is sort of dirty, but it's not like it's mud. If it's never been changed, you might undo it and find mud in here, which is never good. So you should definitely, if you want to, and your fluid's quite dirty, but you can always do this just because, you get yourself a can of parts cleaner or brake clean and go ahead and shoot everything in here, and that'll just pull off every single ounce of fluid that's in here with the brake clean. Just make sure you do it in a ventilated area, otherwise you might be a bit giddy when putting it back together. Another good test you can do if you're looking at the gears inside, simply spin the tires. There should be no clunking. Both tires should spin. They should not, one should not hesitate at all. If one hesitates, even for a minute second, when you're spinning this one, it would mean that you might be missing a tooth. So make sure you just spin it both ways. Double check we're all good. And that's basically it. You just want to do that with both sides. And then of course you can try and roll both and do all the other fun stuff. Next thing you need to do is, if you have a tool like so, you can go ahead and start scraping the blue off. You just want to make sure you find the right angle and go with it. If you don't have this tool, one thing you can use is a razor blade. Just make sure you keep it at said angle, just like so that way you can scrape it off. And always forward, never side to side, and watch your fingers. And last but not least, if you can have a razor blade the length of this, you're doing it best, because then you're not going to accidentally tilt it like this and gouge. These are machine surfaces. We want to try and keep as many scratches and scrapes off as possible. What some people will do is they will use a wire wheel and try to clean it up with that, but some will argue, hey, that removes material. So again, to each their own, do it your own way. Well, he's under there scraping away the gasket. We're going to go ahead and remove these tires so we can inspect the seal. So to do so, again, depending, we have of course the speed nuts on here, or the tuner nuts as some might say, and so you'll just put your adapter on, put this on, and just remove the tire. If you're removing with an impact, you can do it with the tires off the ground, but if not, you might have to get somebody to either A, hold the other side and jam it up so you can remove it, or B, you can also hit the brakes inside the truck, or if all else fails, you'll have to lower the truck onto the ground and you'll have to crack them loose on the ground. After you go ahead and you get that wheel out of the way, don't worry, these were here, I just removed them ahead of time. We're gonna go ahead and just remove all these screws, because we're gonna have to get this cap off so that way we can get our drum off. Right here, just again with the gasket tool, just get it in here, and as you can see, slowly pull it out, let it drain, and then have somewhere nice to slide this out and put it. So when you go to pull it out, there's two things you can do. Have a nice clean rag and wipe it off, or leave it all lubricated up and just put it somewhere where you don't mind it getting a little bit messy. It's always nice to have it lubed up, but if you're, again, just slide it out. We'll have to clean off the back gasket here so that way it seals up nicely again. And from here, as you can see, when we put it back in, this gets gasket, and each and every bolt gets gasket. I'm sure there is an option on the market for a rubber gasket here and rubber gasket for each bolt. You can search online. I'm sure you will find something, and that way you don't have to make such a mess. My biggest worry about doing when you do stuff like this is, of course, one, leaking, but two, see all the excess. You don't want that to build up and then get shoved into your diff. So again, if there is a felt or rubber gasket option, I would probably do it. Next thing, either a hook pick or a flat blade, you need to release this ring. Don't lose it. Put it off to the side. Make sure you study how it went on. It went on like this, so you start with this end, work it around till this sits on the flat spot. Anyways, put it somewhere where you're not going to lose it. You will see this has a key on it. We're going to try and remove it with this. We'll put it out to right about here. Put it here. This can now move free, as you can see. Might need a pair of pliers, but we're basically, I believe this piece is going to be sliding out or unscrewing. As you can see, from right here, which again we can unscrew with our pliers, or well, not our pliers, but our I keep wanting to say our needle nose, but it's not our needle nose, it's our tweezers. Ta-da! As you can see, she unscrews pretty easy there. Just trying to make sure if I see any gunk on the threads, I'm taking it out. So yeah, let's just go ahead, unscrew this out of the way. Time for the next fun thing. We're gonna have to pull the whole drum off. Now it's pretty loose as it is. You see how I'm moving it right now? When you pull it out, the best thing is if you can use both your hands in here to hold the bearings just like this. Like, see how we have the cartridge right here? We want to try and keep all of this together. So try and use your fingers to keep this together when lifting the drum off. So when you're taking a look here, as you can see, there is a lot of shoe left on here. We're not going to have to replace these. So we're going to leave the brakes for the rear. What we're going to be doing though is, look at how messy this is. We're pretty sure that seal is definitely leaking on us. So what we're going to do is, one, how we know it is not our cylinder is the fluid. When I wipe it and I smell it, it smells like the same as your axle. It does not smell like brake fluid. If it smells like brake fluid, then your master right here, or your cylinder might be leaking, which would mean you'd want to replace this. Not a hard job. Take the bolts off the back, take the fluid line off the back, pull it out, put the new one in, bleed it. You can do and look up some videos on that. Since I'm not doing it, I'm probably not the best example. Anyways, since we don't have to mess with the drum, we're not going to. But one thing we are going to do is hold this together, slide it off. Make sure you keep pressure on this. You do not want this to fall apart on you and then have to put those bearings. These aren't too bad because these roller bearings are pretty big. But so if you had to put them back in each spot, it'll be a little time consuming, but not too bad. As you can feel, they are pretty lubricated. There's not much play with these bearings. If you really wanted to, you could replace them. Since you're in here already, you would replace this, but you wouldn't need to replace that obviously unless you had bigger issues. Anyways, from here, we can go ahead and we will remove this seal off of here. This will take me a second. Give me one moment. Reach in there like this inside that seal and just pull out the spring retainer. And then we might be able to work it over. I'll let you know in 1 second. Careful with the shoe. You don't want to be gnarring on it too bad, but take a crowbar and just, or pry bar, and slowly work it off. Make sure you go for a longer one so you get lots of leverage, and then that seal will come off. Just find a good angle, and then yeah, it's out. As you can see, this old seal has this metal plate on the back where the new seal does not. So I need to do a tiny bit of research for myself before I put this one in here, because I want to make sure I'm replacing it with the exact same seal. Funny thing for you guys, this side, it came off perfect, which means the other seal is probably just so worn that instead of staying with the drum, it simply stayed there, and that's why I had to work it off. Or this side is the culprit. Who knows? I won't know, but both sides are getting new seals because both sides were definitely leaking. So I just wanted to show you that it might either keep the seal on or it might take it off, but you should definitely replace that seal when you're doing your drums. So looking at this, from what I'm getting, the drums were probably, or the seals weren't replaced when they did the pads last. They just simply quickly did a hot swap on the pads, didn't order any seals. They tried to RTV their own seal here, and that is what has caused a bunch of problems. The seal over there actually is like a two-piece seal. It rotates on the metal backing. This one does not. This is a one-piece seal like the new one we got. So it's hard for me to say which seal you should get because they are two completely different seals and they were both leaking. So I don't think one's better than the other. I don't know. I'm going to take my pry bar and pry this seal out and definitely replace this one and replace the other one. When we put it in, we'll be lubing it up and then pressing it in. I'm also going to inspect the drum though to make sure we don't have any big gouges in there, because if there's any gouges, then that could explain some of the leaking. For the seal, you can heat up the metal As you heat it, you put pressure on this side, and you can use this one to hold the other side, like this. And what you're doing is putting just a minor bit of pressure on that bearing while lifting here, and as you can see, it's starting to slide up. From here, I would let it cool a little bit, and then you scrape off the inside. If you want, you can heat up the new one when you slide it in. I wouldn't. I would simply tap it in very lightly all the way around. Love tapping it. Some people will even do it with a piece of lumber. So that way, when you're doing it with the rubber mallet, it's putting equal pressure as it slides in. The last thing you want to do is have it hot, of course, because what it could do is melt the seal. We didn't care about melting it on the way out because, yeah, just lubricate it nice and well. You can do it with grease because grease is fine for your bearings underneath, and then just use the grease as a nice lubricant. And like I said, slowly love tap all the way around if these are the seals you're going to go with. If you want, you can of course buy these seals from which they seal, it seems, on there. This seal seems to have failed though, because judging by the RTV, he tried to just seal this instead of replacing it. Where this side, we don't know if it was original or what, but it definitely got replaced. If you're not going to be replacing the bearings, I suggest shooting them down with brake fluid and just making sure they're nice and cleaned up. Just check for play. Again, it should not fall apart. If yours falls apart, then your bearings are so worn down that they definitely need to be replaced. In this case, this is not falling apart. So yeah, just check for slop. If you have a lot of movement inside your bearing, then I would probably replace it while you're in here. So a couple things that you want to avoid, as I can see on this side, you see these gouges? I can tell that this guy, when he put this together, or the last time he replaced the seal, he messed up the seam pretty good. So that's what you're trying to avoid. That's why I always, like I say, be careful when you're sliding this stuff out. You don't want to have big gouges because that can cause some seeping of gaskets or leaks. So either way, make sure all your areas are clean. Shoot some brake clean. Do the same thing with your bearings. Slide the bearing back in so it's sitting nicely, and just make sure that you're rotating nice. Again, you can shoot in some lubricant for now, but it is going to get lubricated quite quickly as soon as you start driving around, because of course this is going to fill up when you're driving around. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is slide in our new seal, and again, we're going to try to do that evenly. You want to kind of, like I said, tap it in with a rubber mallet evenly. Do not use a metal mallet, because if you do and you start denting that seal in, well, it's just going to leak. While I'm in here, I decided to shoot just a tiny bit of silicone lubricant just to make it easier for tapping these seals in. And again, I'm just going to tap them in with a rubber mallet. Again, you're just going around the rim and keeping it balanced as it goes in. And again, rubber, not metal. You do this with metal, you'll mess up your seal. Literally just shoot it with a big can of brake clean and let the brake clean do the job. If you want to, you can give it a wipe afterwards, but as you can see, it's going to remove a lot of all the diff fluid and gear oil, there we go, off the pads, so that way it's not being extra slippery when trying to grip onto your drum. Once you've cleaned up all surfaces, you can go ahead and slide that drum back on. And there you go, just like that. From here, we just have to run the Scotch-Brite a little bit around here, clean up this surface just so it's perfect, and then we're gonna actually go by the store for a quick second, because what we want to do is see if we can buy the gasket for the axle seal. So one thing I noticed was before there was a little bit of in and out play, and these spindle nuts were very, very loose. You've seen me loosen them off with a pair of pliers. So the last person just kind of glided them on. What I ended up doing is using a punch and then hitting the nut only until when you're one notch back, you'll still have play. I kept going until I got to the next notch. Now there's absolutely no in and out play with the drums, and I bet you that's why those seals blew out the way they did. So make sure when you grab the drum, you should not be able to have any wiggle room in and out. Once we do this, slide that key back in, and then if you want to, just tap it a little tighter, so that way it kind of locks the key in, so there's no way it's going to back out. Then here you can literally get this on with your finger. You'll see how it's kind of sprung out that way. So just go ahead, wind that in, and then press it onto there. Once you have that retainer, and again, just start here and wind it back on. You can go ahead and clean this up, and what we're going to do now is just Scotch-Brite and clean this up, so that way we again have a nice surface to seal onto. All right, once you've gone ahead, made sure all surfaces are nicely clean and free of any debris, we can go ahead. You can either apply it to this side or this side. I would suggest we do it to this side. That way you can see what line you have to take. What I like to do is you can go around, go around, or completely do a circle. So here, around, and then around, and then around, and it kind of just meets in the center. And then when you're done, you just simply give it a second to seat. And remember this, they're two machine parts. You don't need to go nuts with this. It's too easy to not just leave a small bead, and that's basically what you want to do. When you tighten it together, a little goes a far away, and you don't want it dripping in here and then getting on the axle shaft and so on and so forth. So again, little goes a long way. Make sure you go all the way around and make sure it connects in the end, and so on and so forth. We'll kind of let it set for about, I usually let it set for 5 minutes, and then from there you can push this on it and then just lightly thread the screws in. As you can see, we have material all the way around. We know it'll seal there. If you want to, you can add more than that. I usually choose not to, because again, you don't want too much, as too much can be harmful in most cases. Again, I'm just going to make sure none of these hanging ones are hanging down, because I don't need that caught up in there. But anyways, from here, all you do is slide in that axle shaft. There you go. Again, you just have to line up that axle shaft. But now that we know we have every surface covered with just enough RTV, in my opinion, we're just going to go ahead, make sure this rotates up, and we don't want it to smear too much, so we kind of want it to line up before it even seats. So you can kind of just like that. Again, if you want to seal your bolt holes, well, that's all you do, just a light coating of RTV. All right, so next thing we're going to want to do is just seat these. After you've seated them, what we're going to do is take our ratchet, and we're not going to do too much torque spec. Like literally, you're just going to lightly seat this so it's seated against the metal and we have a little bit of movement. I'm just holding the brake drum with one hand. See how it's just lightly oozing out the sides like that? As you can see, I didn't put much on there for gasket maker, and yeah, it's doing what it should. Ooze out the edge just a tiny bit. Shouldn't be insane amount. If you have an insane amount on this side, that means you have an insane amount on the other side, and that foreign matter could do damage later on. So definitely don't go nuts. And again, we're just seating this until it's just like that, and we're not really putting any torque on it. We will do that afterwards. Go and do this to both sides, and if you want to, go ahead and do it to your diff cover right now. Once you're at this point, both sides are completely sealed up. Leave it for 1 hour once again, and after 1 hour we'll go ahead and torque these to spec. I'm not going to go too much into this. This is basically that broken bolt that you see at the very beginning. I drilled it out, and then I switched to a 1/2 inch coarse thread bolt, and I just finished tapping. Again, drill and tapping is not simple, but you keep your drill bit straight, you drill forward, and then after that you simply 2 turns to 3 turns forward, 2 turns back, 3 turns forward, 2 turns back, and every time, or I should say, you go 2 turns once it starts to get a little bit tighter. And that's it. You're just going to do that, but for proper tapping, drilling and tapping, watch drilling and tapping videos. I'm not going to teach you that in this one. Finished tap and dyeing this. We're perfect there. Next thing to do is we're just going to clean up the last little bit on this side of it and the diff cover, and from there we will put in just like we did there. Just go around the holes, go to the next, connect the dots, and go and cover the whole thing. Then lightly screw in all the screws jumping around and seat it so that way you've got that perfect bead around there. While that's drying, go ahead and just lightly seat your wheel. You can use a ratchet to just simply set these in. Best is to do, of course, star pattern and go across. But anyways, go ahead, do your triangles and stars. After you get that seated, we're gonna put the truck back on the ground. From there, you can do your inner hub here. You're gonna go from this side to that side, and then from here to here. After you've done the first box, go to the next box. Jump from here, to there, to there, to there, and then continue on forth. When you finish, you want to be at about 115 foot-pounds. Now, when the truck's in the air, if you're trying to do this with a ratchet, good luck. It's probably not going to allow you to do it. Because the tire will rotate. So that's why it's best to put the tire back on. We'll put it on the ground and so on and so forth. All right, I've lightly put the bolts in. When you go to torque them down, what you're going to do is start with this one. So 1, 2, 3, and then what you're going to do is just go to the next one. So 4, and then 5, 6, and then 7. Like, just keep going to the next one until they connect, if that makes sense. So you're basically, like I said, starting here, going to this one, going to that one, and then going to the next, going to the next, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next, and you'll touch the ones you've already finished by the end by jumping to the next one. Do them all to 35 foot-pounds. Again, make sure you seat it, have it so the surfaces kiss just barely. Do not do the torque sequence, or sorry, torque spec. After they've kissed, you wait an hour and then crank it to torque spec. From there, I will leave it up to you. You should technically leave it for 24 hours before filling it with fluid. Almost every mechanic shop does not do so. You can choose how long you can wait to let that gasket cure. So if you're doing multiple things today, do that, let it dry as long as you can, and then fill it full of fluid. That's the best way to do it, and try to drive as little as possible for the first 24 hours while it cures, and after that, well, if you have a leak, then you get to redo the gasket on said piece. But that's about it. Anyways, I hope this helped you out. Oh, by the way, for refilling, I will show you that really quickly at the very end of this video. But thanks again for watching. Press like if it helped you out, and subscribe for more. Well, it's now nighttime. As you can see, we've waited until the very last second so we can fill it. From here, you're going to take your bottles and you're going to start squeezing the fluid into the fill that we popped out earlier, and you're going to want to continuously fill this until the fluid leaks out. You literally just keep pouring fluid in until it leaks out of that hole. After it leaks out and starts leaking out, you'll see it'll have a steady stream. Then you will simply just tie the plug in. If you need a torque spec, 35 foot-pounds, and Bob's your uncle. Good job. If you're wondering the fluid, we're just using 75 W90. And again, you just need to cut one of the caps and then swap it. As you can see, all you do is simply do that, and then, like I said, pour it in. If you want to and you're worried about it spilling everywhere or wasting fluid, you can put a small hose on it. Make sure you hold on to the hose so it doesn't fall in your diff. But yeah, simply you would let it pour down and yes, it will take forever because it is a thick fluid. Just let mine drain a little bit, but if you look inside the hole, which you probably won't be able to see on mine, the fluid level is currently in line with the threads. Just make sure you park on a level surface when you do this. For us, it took about, I want to say around 4 liters. So 4 quarts? 4 quarts. So there you go.